Hey class, Miss Thomas here. So our weekly concept this week, so our big idea is sounds all around. So we're just going to be reading and paying attention to the things that we hear happening around us. So sounds all around. Our brand new essential question for the week is what sounds can you hear? What sounds can you hear? Stop right now. You pause the video and just listen for a moment. Just listen. I hear some students in the classroom next to me talking. I heard a door creak out in the hallway, so somebody's coming in the building. I can hear that. I can hear the clock going tick, 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 tick. What can you hear? So that's our essential question. And then the next part of that is how are they made? So that sound, how is that made? I heard a creak, and I know it's the door. It's the door hinge, but how is it squeaking? How is it making that sound? So we're going to read some stories this week, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the sounds that we hear and how they make those sounds. So again, the sounds all around is our big main idea for the week. Before we start, I have a story to read to you today, and we're going to do a thinking map together. But before we begin, I want to go over our words for the week. So these are good words to know. They're great. So when we learn new vocabulary words, we get to add those up into our brain, almost like a toolbox. And we can take those words and then we can use them as we speak, and we can use them as we talk as well and write. So we can use it in our writing and in our speech. All right, as we talk back and forth. So another word that maybe we don't use as often as we could is color. Color. So we might say this bird is a bright color green. Or hey, do you know where my green marker is? Or my blue pen? So we can use the color as a descriptive word. The word early. So early morning can be very quiet. Early. So it means not late, it's the beginning of something. Early. The next word is instead. So not this, I used this instead. Instead of the black marker, I used green. Okay, so instead, I try to whisper instead of shouting. So it's something that you do instead of. Nothing. There is nothing in this empty can, or there's nothing left in my water bottle. Next word is O. So, oh, our marching band has a great sound. So it's like an exclamation in a sense. Next word is thought. He thought the jet was much too loud. Or he thought he had the answer right. It just means a thought up here, thinking. You already had the thought in the past. Next word is scrambled. Goats scramble up the rocks. Or maybe I scrambled up the hill to catch my bus. So it's scrambled. It just means you're kind of moving at a fast pace, kind of chaotic, a little bit busy. And then the last word is suddenly. So if something happens suddenly, it means it happens just like that, out of the blue, quickly, suddenly. All right, so we're going to hear those words come up in our reading this week. All right, so I wanted us to talk about them and at least put them out there so that when we hear them, we'll recognize them and know what they mean. All right, so again, before we start, our essential question is what sounds can you hear? All right, and then how are they made? Our skill that we're practicing while trying to find those answers about sounds and how they make the sounds, the skill that we're practicing is still we're thinking a little bit about sequence. Can you see that word? Sequence. So what happens first, then what happens next, and then what happens after that, and then finally what happens last. So to figure out a lot of things, it helps us in stories to figure out kind of what happened first, what happened at the beginning of the story, what happened in the middle of the story, and then what happened at the very end of the story. And it helps us comprehend the main idea or what we're supposed to learn from a story. So today we're going to practice that sequencing a little bit, all right? And we're going to make another flow map. You have been doing so good with these flow maps that you've been creating. Keep up the hard work. Be proud of yourself. They're fun to make too. And we know that it's helping us with our comprehension, and we'll be able to retain it more and hold on to that story in our brain if we stop and we think about it and write it down in a nice and orderly way. So as we read today, we're going to be making a flow map together. I'm going to show you how I like to do it, and I would like you to do it along with me like we have in the past, okay? So before we begin, get your paper, get your pencil. You can pause if you'd like, and go ahead and write this title. Now, comma, what's that sound? We know, we can see a question mark here, so we know that there's a question being asked. There's also a what question here. So it says, now, what's that sound? So we are going to be, I wonder, even just by just the title alone, I'm going to make a couple guesses on what this story is going to be about. Here we go. Take a peek at the picture. What questions do you have? Already, what questions do you have? I'm looking at their faces. They look kind of like surprised or maybe shocked or curious. See their faces? Surprised is kind of what they look, or maybe he looks like he's kind of questioning, like, what's going on? So remember, good readers are always asking questions as we read. So we're always wanting to know more, and we're always wanting to find the answers to the questions that we're asking. It helps us learn more and comprehend even deeper what the story is telling us. All right, so let's figure this out. What sounds are these kids going to be hearing as we read? And then together we'll write a flow map and we'll see, what do they hear first? Then what happens? And so on as we go through the story. So read along with me. If you scroll down, you're going to see the pictures from this book down below, so you can read right along with me. Or after you're done watching, you can scroll down and reread the story. Now, what's that sound? Tap, 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 rat-a-tat-tat. What's that sound? I asked Gilbert. It started early this morning. I thought it might stop, but it hasn't. Let's check the garage, says Marta. I think Dad is making that sound. Tap, 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 rat-a-tat-tat. What do you think it could be? Zing, zing, zing. Dad was in the garage cutting a board with his saw. Zing, 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 zing. This is not the sound, said Gilbert. This sound is smoother. Okay, so now he's describing the sound. So what sound did they hear first? What was that first sound that they heard? Tap, 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 rat-a-tat-tat. I wonder what that sound is too. So let's write that on our flow map. What did they hear first? First, they heard tap, tap, tap. So let's write that together. You can pause if you need to, and then pick up when you're done. So like always, we like to write in complete sentences when we do our thinking maps. It helps it be even more organized as we go through it, and then we could pull it back out and look at it again and know exactly what we were describing and talking about if it's in complete sentences. So I wrote first, comma, they heard the sound tap, tap, tap. All right, so after I wrote that, I put a period at the end, and now I'm going to go back and put my box around it. This helps keep us super organized, and it looks nice and neat. Once you've made your box, make a little arrow to show that we're going to go on to the next sound. Your arrow can be as big or small as you want it. I made a little one today. All right, so so they heard this tap, 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 tap. That heard that first, and so they're like, hey, maybe it's Dad. So they go and they find Dad. He's not making a tap, he's making a zing, zing, zing sound. And they see, what's making that sound? A saw. So then they heard the sound zing, zing, zing. Let's write that next. I also put quotation marks around the sounds themselves, because those quotation marks we put around when someone says something or when it's something that you can hear with your ear. So I went ahead and put quotations around the tap, tap, tap and the zing, 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 so that we know that that's an actual sound that we're hearing, as if almost like the saw was talking to us and saying something. It's saying zing, zing, zing. All right, remember your period at the end too, and then we'll box this one up. And make your arrow going on to the next thing. So Dad was in the garage cutting a board with his saw. Zing, zing, zing. This is not the sound, said Gilbert. This sound is smoother. Let's find Gramps, said Marta. He might be making the sound. So they quickly ran to check back at the back of the house to try to find Gramps. So Gramps was sweeping the deck with a broom. Swish, swish, swish. Swish, swish, swish. I can almost picture that sound in my head, the broom. So no, that's not the sound, said Gilbert. This sound is much softer, much, much softer. So let's go ahead and write that next. So what sound did they hear? Swish, swish, swish. So we'll say, then they heard the sound. Swish, swish. It's a fun sound. Swish, swish, swish. It's fun to say. And when I get to the edge of my paper, I can't write and fit anymore. So I have to drop down a row. So I'll make a line in my flow map that points to where I'm starting again. And we always go left to right, just like we're reading a book, left to right. So you see how I just started over here and I drew my line, and then I still put that little arrow so you know what's going to come next down below. So I want you to keep adding to this as we go. The next sound that comes up, will you write it and add it on our flow chart? Then the next sound, add it, and then the next. So you're going to keep adding. I'm going to keep reading to you, but I want you to do this part on your own. So listen for those sounds. And if you're unsure, scroll down and look at the illustrations, because we get really good clues in the illustrations as well. All right, so scroll down and look at the story too. You can read right along. Keep reading with Miss Thomas. All right, so that was much softer sound. It was a swish, swish, swish of the broom. Let's find Anna instead, said Marta. Maybe she's making the sound. They found Anna in the driveway. Anna was bouncing a ball. Bam, bam, bam. So does that sound the same as that first tap, 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 rat-a-tat-tat sound? Not really, huh? So here, I'll show you the picture. It looks like she's bouncing a basketball. Bam, bam, bam. So go ahead and tell me. Next, what sound did they hear? Okay, fill that in, write the sentence, and box it up for me. So no, this is not the sound, said Gilbert. This sound is slower. So it's like a bam, bam, bam as they're bouncing the ball. This is hopeless, sighed Marta. Tap, 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 rat-a-tat-tat. There it is again, said Gilbert. He looked up at the tallest tree. Suddenly, he shouted, Wow! Oh, wow! It's a bird! Look at the color on its head, cried Marta. It's red, like a red crown. The bird scrambled up and down the tree. Tap, 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 rat-a-tat-tat. It's a woodpecker. A woodpecker on the tree. Look at their faces. They're shocked and excited. He's pointing. It's a woodpecker. Have you ever heard a woodpecker in a tree near you? Tap, tap. Sometimes it goes pretty quick. Like that. So yes, says Marta, and nothing else sounds just like that. Tap, 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 pat, tap, tap. So after that, I want you to tell me, after the bouncing of the ball, last, what sound comes last? And tell me what it was. Oh my goodness. So how are the sounds around us made? That's that question. So we got some great examples in this story. Will you finish this up, please, and send me a picture of your flow map in Dojo? I look so forward to seeing them and reading them and seeing if you found the last two sounds from the story. Good job practicing this skill. Your thinking maps are coming along so beautifully. So go ahead and let me know if you have any questions. I look forward to seeing your work, and I'll talk to you soon.